Hi. Wednesday afternoon, and some updates on the B-1 and on Spirit of St. Louis, which is coming on quite nicely. But let's first talk about the B-1. Okay, so some coloration is happening. And I must say, every time I use these bicycle spokes, in this case 3 of them, which just happen to fit nicely down the wing there without too much trouble, I like the use of the bicycle spokes even more. They are definitely one of my favorite sort of holders of things, especially of the heavier things. So I've got a good 20 of them or more. So this is an initial sort of base coat and starting to get an idea of the coloration, and also at the same time getting some undercoat colors, so that if and when, and I probably will be doing a little bit of sanding, I won't use chipping method because, as one of you mentioned, the B1s, even the older ones, are not, they're not in a bad condition. So we need a little bit of wear, but not too much. And I won't be doing any sanding to get through to those panel lines, of which there are not tons, but there's enough to make it interesting, till the very end. You certainly don't want to be using up your panel lines early in the spray process. So I'm sort of getting there, and that'll sort of take place as things go on. But I don't really want to make huge progress on the wings and not on the fuselage. So really the only thing that I did want to do was get this part done in a manner that's more or less acceptable to what one might expect on the bit of movement that you get. I wouldn't say I'm quite there yet, but I suppose the underside is okay at just that plain grey. And to be honest, one could even tweak it when it's on. So I suppose this is almost acceptable to actually glue into the fuselage. And while I was spraying green, I just gave this the base coat, which I hadn't done when I sprayed grey. I sort of wasn't thinking about it. I then thought about this centerpiece which I had put, which was just a piece of clipped sprue, and the backside. Now, even though this is right inside the engine, I thought that looked really ugly, so I took 2 of them and I drilled them out. Unfortunately, I had glued them in. I drilled them out, and I decided to put something a whole lot better in, and you'll never guess what went into the center of that wheel. That's the front piece of it. It's a little bomb from, I don't know what, one of the 172 aircraft, which happened to fit quite nicely into there and gave yeah, I think you're going to be able to see that. Yep, you see there? So that looks better now. It's a little bit of a cone on the edge there. Now, even though that's not the intake, the cone still looks fine. And on that side, I won't be able to light it in such a way that you can see, but if you could see to the back of that, you'd see something a little bit better than that badly cut off piece of sprue. So I'm busy fixing that. That is sort of one of the traits that I do need to improve upon, and that is things that I think are a quick fix, like putting this wheel inside to improve upon the fact that there was nothing inside, and then deciding to put a quick bit of sprue to block the hole, instead of doing a little bit of a better job with finding something that at least looks acceptable. So anyway, it does actually look pretty good now on the inside there. And when you look through the exhausts, it'll look a lot better than the blanked off area. Now this one is glued, but it's not glued there or glued there. It's glued on those. And that's what I'm going to talk about now. These veins, and that's not the center one, because the center one was somewhat easier, and that one I got into position last time already, but these veins, and luckily I kept, well, it wouldn't have mattered too much. I kept the 4 from the sprue that belonged together. I put those 4 aside, and then the other side 4 aside. And then when I needed to sort of start fitting them, and you'll see, you see that little bit of space there. The fit isn't perfect. It's better on some of them and not so better on others. Those 4 veins are actually quite a little tricky area on this thing, and I'll tell you why. So on the one section, the one half of the engine, that's flat. So that's the part that touches the wing. It's a flat surface, and on the other side it tapers, which means that those 4 veins, even though they look close to each other, they sort of look symmetrical, they're not. And you have to be a little bit careful when you get these veins in, because you could put them in wrong and end up in not being able to fit these halves on. So obviously, you know, always harp on about test fitting, test fitting, test fitting. You need to first lay them out so that you know which side was the flat side. So that's this upper side. All of those are the flat side, and the other side is only slightly tapered, so that when this is up against the wing, you can see that's flat, and that's the slightly up tapered side. I chose to glue them into that side first, because it gave me a little bit more room to get the fingers and position them correctly. And then secondly, because this is tapered, the ones that are here are a bit shorter, because this nacelle gets a little bit thicker that much further on. So those 2 are slightly longer than these 2. And when you get them in, if you've got them correct, they should sit just a little bit higher than the middle piece. And the reason for that is that those 4 are depressions into they recesses into the nacelle body, and that one is flush with the body. So the center piece lies flush, but these 4, to actually be able to fit into their slots, need to be ever so slightly higher. And what you'll see here is they are absolutely minimally higher, which means that gluing them into position, and you sort of need to do this by test fitting, and I would say it was actually quite a difficult thing. You have to then you have to test fit before you start gluing, put them in, and then use something like the end of a paintbrush to position them, to try and get them to slot into there, to see that you've actually got the position. Now you can't do that with them loose, of course they'll fall all over the show. So I used blue tack first, and then once you've got the glue on, you can continue to test fit. And then once I was happy with the position, and you have to look through that side and that side to make sure they have slotted into the opposing slot, tape this closed, make sure that everything is in position, and let that dry. And then when you open it, you hope to get the correct veins, so that your veins, although sort of in like that, they could still tilt slightly, and you could have problems. They can also slightly move fore and aft and out of their little recess, and in some cases the recesses are too long. So that's sort of something that Airfix could have done a whole lot better, but it's not the worst of tasks. So that's in, and then my sort of representation of turbines, and I originally thought these wheels fitted in perfectly. They don't. They need about 1 millimeter off the diameter, which is a bit of filing work to be done. And the result of doing that is then this one. So that is now all in position but not glued here, and that works very well, because now the whole thing is together and I can slowly start gluing bit by bit and ensuring that I have a very smooth joint. This side is very smooth, so I'll start with that and let it dry completely, and then I'll get to this side where especially over here you can already see that that's, if you just glued and left it, that's what you'd get. So I'd have to sort of sit with a paintbrush or something to sort of get in there and push this out a little bit as I'm gluing it, and just glue a small section at a time and get that done. So not a big problem, just, you know, take it easy and test fit. And I have filled those sink marks. So it's coming on, won't be long, and then those are done. So far, apart from the fact that I decided to do a lot of work on that horizontal stabilizer area, I would say these vanes are the most difficult part of the model so far. I did take your advice. One of you had commented that those large frames on the canopy, and I didn't bring the canopy here now, really don't look great, and the B-1 has got a very smooth canopy, as it should for a high-speed aircraft. And so I have decided to just knuckle down and slowly file away and get rid of those canopy lines. They're also in fact too wide. So the suggestion was to lay down tape and create the window masks and then take them off and then clean it off and then put the window masks back. But those bars are actually too wide and overdone. So I've sort of looked, I can do it from the pictures and be able to relay, correct and get a whole lot better impression of the whole canopy and its framing. So probably I will be heading towards fuselage join within the next couple of days, because that's a separate job from the nacelles, and the nacelles can carry on independently. But that's now the next section. So the wings must be able to get in with the joining piece. Oh, I do need to still work on that little piece of sprue and just make sure that that fits. So I can't quite put them in yet. So then we will be getting to that method which we spoke of. Oh, I did do one extra thing before I speak about that joining method. So I put the cockpit in position, and it is loose from that thing at the bottom because it needs to sort of just fit nicely into this, underneath this part there. But so that it's got a bit of strength and bracing underneath, I did just put some pieces of plastic, and 2 of them happened to match perfectly. But the reason I didn't glue it is because it also needs to be able to just shift ever so slightly that way, left and right, and this entire bulkhead can also do a little bit of that, so that when these 2 are in position, one of the worst things would be that your cockpit is so rigid that it forces a little step on one side, because this one's not bad, although I can see a bit of difference in thickness of the plastic on either side. You see this plastic thickness is greater than the other side, and because it touches there very closely, if my cockpit was rigid and ever so slightly off, my cockpit would be opposing me when I'm trying to get a nice joint there. Like I'd be trying to force this to get rid of that joint, and the cockpit is sort of blocking the way. So that's a little bit handy to at least just have that bit of play on that, so that it sort of slots into position. It takes the best seating under there. Oh, those are on. I did do what I said I was going to do in the end, and I drilled out those the undercarriage bay areas, so that I could push these from the bottom as I was gluing them into, and I definitely needed to do that to be able to get them very, very nice and flush. And I was pondering sanding that a bit further, but I don't need to. That's come out totally fine, as opposed to the work which I did on that which involved a lot of sanding. So all in all, maybe that's the worst one there that I did. I didn't do the best of a very nice smooth joint there. So I've just got to get those little pins, make sure that's good, and I can start gluing this fuselage. And the method was going to be get the wings in position so they can be glued in on the lower surface completely. Put that joining piece in, put that into position, tape it into position, don't pay it any more attention, it's a little bit off there at the moment, and then start gluing this rear section. One side first, let it dry completely, and start improving the situation until both sides over here and around there and up to there are very nicely glued to the best of the ability of the two pieces in matching. The reason this is not is because it's just not quite into that slot there on the cockpit. That's better. And then get this, and then get that in. That'll give it sort of extra rigidity, that tail cone, because it glues onto both of those surfaces. I won't put the tail in till this is all glued, because there's just so much manhandling and it's easier not to have that thing sticking out. And then start, you know, just getting a little bit of, well, I guess one side completely first, not a little bit there and then a little bit there. Do one side completely, get it really, really nice, sand it, do the other side, and then nose cone on. And then canopy in, masking, and tail on. So the only parts which won't be on for the entire time of spraying are these, because of their, even though I've strengthened that axle, it's still a bit of a delicate part, and we don't need them to be on there. So these will be sprayed separately, but then the whole rest of the thing can be sprayed together. So it's coming on. The spray job, of course, won't nearly be as fast as the Vulcan, which, you know, was sort of done in one sitting, one afternoon, all done single color with really no weathering or anything. This one is quite a longer job. But I think it's worth it. And I'm pondering that I have not, to my memory, seen more than maybe one B-1 bomber ever on a table at a meeting. I'm not sure the reason why so few B-1s would have been built by people. Interesting, maybe a little bit of a difficult one. Maybe a lot of people started it and didn't finish it. So getting there, and I would say that I am enjoying the build. It's not a difficult, it's got some difficult areas, but it's nothing like the Vulcan. Okay, before I talk about that, so yesterday I got Alclad stainless steel. That was sort of actually just a last minute grab. I was pondering whether to do silver, whether to do chrome onto the grey, In the end, I just sprayed stainless steel onto the grey and then a floor wax coating to protect it. And I'm quite happy with that. It is still quite on the shiny side, but it's going to be dulled down somewhat by when I get to work on the engine with inks and so on. So next up is getting a bit of blackening on the cylinders, getting a bit of weathering there. I have taken the masking off the windows, and that window I have prepared. That's an easy fit, but I don't want that grey there, so it must be black as if you're looking into the cabin, or dark grey. I mean, it doesn't have to be black. Probably black is a bit overdone on the top there. Something that just looks like you're looking into the cabin. And I put on the decals, but as you would expect, and as I did expect, those decals did give trouble. But what did I do first? Yeah, I think it was one of the tail ones. One of those tail ones, that's all just one piece. Went on okay, and I thought I was doing well. Got to the other side, and it broke into 3 pieces. But I left them quite long to really loosen from the paper, but as soon as I touched it, so it probably was already in 3 pieces from being on the paper for so many decades, as that one was. That was in 3 pieces. And with a lot of care with that one and that one, giving it lots of time to release and sliding it very gently, even though it came apart on the piece, just very gently try and move all 3 pieces into position, get it onto the wing. And that one, very delicate and damaged, and then using microset or microsol microset, which worked to a degree. But this one, because of the curvature of the wing and of these huge ribs, that only went on up to a degree. So you can see the imperfections. I will try maybe and put on some more and see if it improves the situation. That's already a very impressive result compared to what it was looking like yesterday. I just try and apply microsol over and over and over and over and over, and then it was wrinkled. Then just leave it. Hopefully it sort of shrinks and pulls tight, and it sort of did. So that's as good as I'm going to get. It's just these 2 decals remaining, which will go on maybe after the engine, but before final weathering there. So I'm quite happy with that for the semi-low quality kit that it is. Not bad. And somewhat easy. So one of the old Airfix that I did build in the 70s is this Sea King, and this one is again a just started model which I obtained, but you could essentially say next to nothing was done, which I started a while back, and I'm just doing a quick build on. And when I say quick build, almost no attention to the interior, just a sort of an average grey. I don't want much attention drawn to the I won't do a sanding or anything on this. I'm just interested in getting a mildly acceptable finish. This has not been touched for a couple of years now, but it's also not a big deal to get this one finished, so probably will do that. And luckily, for some reason, a lot of people got this kit and a lot of people didn't get to the point of finishing or putting on decals. So I've got enough decal sets for this Sea King. I'll just do that standard scheme, and I will do it the white, the box art scheme. So this is one of those that I'll just pop in between and finish as we go, sort of like this one, although this one is easier, I would say. And I haven't done a helicopter for a while. The helicopter that I'm keen to get to this year as well is the little Airfix Sikorsky S55, is it? The one, the big round bulbous nose one. Can't remember quite. I think it's that one. It's got green and white. It's a green and white Airfix scheme. Another fairly simple, very simple build indeed, which I enjoy building. There's some little aeroplanes and some helicopters that I could just build over and over and over and over, like the Tiger Moth. Wouldn't get tired of the Tiger Moth. The Spitfire doesn't really grab me as such. I mean, Spitfire is a very simple build, but it just wasn't one that had affected me back in the 70s. So whereas the Mustang had more, but the Tiger Moth is one that I can build over and over. And I have a number of others of these, which I'll do. We'll see how this one comes out. I'll do a little bit of weathering on it, or at least I should say something to enhance the panel lines. That's really what I'm looking at. Something to make it look a little bit in use, not just a kid's toy. Pins, fuselage gluing, finishing off work on this, and I suppose the odd gluing of piece on that. That's what I'll be doing in the next day or two. Okay, happy modeling. Cheers.